Welcome to Heartline Stories. Today's story follows Grace, a courageous young girl from a small town who finds herself in an extraordinary situation. What begins as a simple act of kindness on a mountain trail takes a surprising turn when she saves a man, only to find out he's no ordinary stranger. Who is he? Why was he there? And how will this one moment change Grace's life forever? Stick around to uncover the twists and turns in this heartwarming tale. Let us know where you're watching from in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible stories. In a small town tucked between rolling hills and endless woods, there lived a kind-hearted girl named Grace. Grace wasn't like most people her age. While others dreamed of riches and fame, Grace found joy in little things, like helping her neighbors, taking care of stray animals, and hiking up the nearby mountain trails. Though her family was poor, her heart was richer than gold. One breezy afternoon, as the sun began to dip behind the mountains, Grace decided to go on one of her favorite trails. With a backpack full of snacks and a bottle of water, she climbed higher and higher until the town below looked tiny. The air was crisp and the trees whispered in the gentle wind. But as she reached a sharp curve in the trail, she noticed something unusual, a shoe lying in the dirt. Grace frowned and looked around. That's when she heard it, a faint groan coming from the bushes. Her heart raced as she stepped closer. Lying there, half covered in leaves, was a man. His face was pale, and he clutched his ankle in pain. "Are you okay, sir?" Grace asked, kneeling beside him. The man looked up with tired eyes and tried to speak, but his voice came out weak. "I think I twisted my ankle. I can't move." Without a second thought, Grace pulled out a scarf from her bag. She wrapped it around the man's ankle to give him some support. "Don't worry," she said with a determined smile. "I'll get you out of here." The man chuckled weakly. "It's not that simple, kid. I don't think I can walk." Grace's mind raced. The sun was setting, and the trail was getting colder. She couldn't just leave him there. Taking a deep breath, she helped him sit up. "Then I'll carry you," she said firmly. The man looked at her in disbelief. "You're just a kid. How?" "Hold on tight," Grace interrupted, squatting down to help him onto her back. Though he wasn't very heavy, the rocky trail made every step a challenge. But Grace didn't give up. She kept moving, one step at a time, even as her legs started to ache. After what felt like hours, they finally reached the base of the mountain. Grace set the man down on a bench near a parking lot. A group of people, who seemed to be looking for someone, rushed over. "Mr. Harris, we've been searching for you everywhere," one of them exclaimed. "Mr. Harris?" Grace asked, puzzled. The man smiled at her as two of the people helped him into a car. "Thank you, Grace. You saved my life. I owe you everything." Before she could ask more, he handed her a shiny card with his name on it. Benjamin Harris. Grace's eyes widened. She had heard that name before. Benjamin Harris was one of the richest men in the country. But why was he here, all alone on a mountain? "I'll see you soon," Benjamin said with a mysterious smile before the car drove away, leaving Grace standing in stunned silence. Grace stood there, clutching the shiny card in her hand as the car disappeared into the distance. Her heart was racing, not just from the physical effort of carrying Benjamin Harris down the mountain, but from the whirlwind of thoughts swirling in her mind. "Benjamin Harris, a billionaire," she whispered to herself, staring at the name printed in elegant gold letters. She had read about him in the local newspaper once. He owned companies that made everything from cars to hotels, and he was famous for being one of the most mysterious and private people in the world. But what was he doing alone on a mountain trail? As she made her way back home, Grace felt a mix of pride and curiosity. She hadn't rescued him because he was rich or famous. She didn't even know who he was at the time. She had only done what her heart told her was right. But now the shiny card in her pocket felt like a door to something extraordinary. Something she couldn't quite imagine yet. The next morning, as Grace was helping her mom hang laundry in their tiny backyard, a sleek black car pulled up in front of their modest house. Grace froze, the wet sheet slipping from her hands. Out stepped a man in a sharp suit. He looked around with a polite smile before spotting Grace. "Miss Grace?" he asked, his voice smooth but friendly. Grace nodded slowly, unsure of what was happening. The man held out an envelope. "Mr. Harris asked me to deliver this to you." Her fingers trembled slightly as she took the envelope. The man tipped his hat and returned to the car, which sped away before Grace could ask any questions. She stared at the envelope, her name written on it in elegant handwriting. "Who is that, Grace?" her mom asked, stepping closer. "I don't know," Grace replied honestly. She carefully opened the envelope and pulled out a letter. It read, "Dear Grace, thank you again for your bravery and kindness. You saved my life, and I will never forget it. I'd like to invite you to my home so we can talk more. A car will be waiting for you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. if you're interested. I hope you'll accept my gratitude. Benjamin Harris." Grace's heart skipped a beat. She handed the letter to her mom, who read it with wide eyes. "Grace, are you sure about this?" her mom asked, concern flickering across her face. Grace thought for a moment. She didn't know what Mr. Harris wanted to talk about, but deep down she felt that this could be the beginning of something amazing. "I think I should go, Mom," she said quietly. "He's not just some stranger. He's someone who might need my help again." Her mom sighed but nodded. "If you feel it's the right thing to do, then go. But be careful." That night, Grace could barely sleep. The thought of meeting Benjamin Harris again filled her with excitement and a little nervousness. What would his house look like? What would he say to her? And why did he seem so determined to thank her? The next morning, the same sleek black car arrived at her house promptly at 10 a.m. Grace climbed in, her heart pounding as the car whisked her away from her small, quiet town. The journey felt like a dream. The car eventually pulled up to a massive iron gate, which opened to reveal a sprawling estate surrounded by lush gardens and fountains. As the car stopped in front of a grand mansion, Grace stepped out, her eyes widening at the sheer size and beauty of the place. A butler greeted her and guided her inside, where Benjamin Harris was waiting in a cozy sitting room. He was no longer wearing the casual hiking clothes she had seen him in, but a well-fitted suit that made him look every bit the billionaire he was. "Grace," Benjamin said with a warm smile, rising to greet her. "I'm so glad you came." Grace smiled shyly. "Thank you for inviting me, Mr. Harris." "Please call me Ben," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "We have so much to talk about." Grace took a deep breath and sank into the plush armchair across from Benjamin. The room was nothing like she'd imagined a billionaire's home to be. Sure, it was grand, but it also felt warm and cozy, with bookshelves lining the walls and a crackling fireplace that filled the space with a soft glow. "Grace, I owe you an explanation," Benjamin began, leaning forward. "I wasn't exactly honest about why I was on that mountain. Truth is, I needed some time away from my world and from myself." Grace tilted her head curiously. "Why would someone like you need to escape? You have, well, everything." Benjamin gave a bittersweet smile. Having everything sometimes means you lose sight of what's truly important. That mountain trail was supposed to clear my head, but I ended up getting lost instead. Then you came along and reminded me that not all heroes wear capes. Some carry backpacks and wear hiking boots. Grace blushed at the compliment, but stayed quiet. She had so many questions bubbling inside her. Why was Benjamin telling her all this? And what did he mean by what's truly important? Benjamin's expression grew serious. The truth is, Grace, I haven't been the person I want to be. My world revolves around business, numbers, and deals. But after what you did for me, I realized I can't keep living like that. I want to change, and I think you might be able to help me. Me? Grace asked, her voice full of surprise. How could I help you? I'm just a regular kid. Benjamin smiled warmly. You're far from regular. You risked everything to save a complete stranger, without a second thought. That's the kind of bravery and kindness people like me forget sometimes. You reminded me what it means to care. Grace still didn't fully understand, but before she could respond, a butler entered with a tray of sandwiches and two tall glasses of lemonade. Grace's stomach growled softly, and Benjamin chuckled. Let's eat first, he said. I think we've earned it. As Grace munched on a cucumber sandwich, Benjamin began to talk about his idea. He wanted to start a project, something that would truly make a difference in the lives of people who were struggling, just like Grace's family. I've been thinking about creating a foundation, Benjamin explained, something that could provide help to those who need it most. Food, education, shelter, whatever it takes. But I don't want it to be just another program that rich people start and forget about. I want it to be real, personal, and meaningful. Grace listened intently. That sounds amazing, she said, a spark of excitement in her voice. But how can I help with something so big? Well, Benjamin said, leaning forward, you know what it's like to live in a small town, to struggle, to hope for something better. Who better to help me understand what people really need? Grace's mind raced. The idea of helping others on such a big scale was incredible, but also scary. Could she really make a difference? Before she could answer, Benjamin stood up and held out his hand. What do you say, Grace? Will you join me on this journey? Grace hesitated for a moment, staring at Benjamin's outstretched hand. The weight of his words hung in the air. This wasn't just about helping one person anymore. This was about changing lives, creating something far bigger than herself. Finally, she reached out and shook his hand, her grip firm, but her heart fluttering with both excitement and nervousness. I'll do it, Grace said, her voice steady. I'll help you. Benjamin's face lit up with a smile. You won't regret this, Grace. Together, we'll make a real difference. He walked over to a nearby table and picked up a large folder. This, he said, handing it to her, is the beginning of our project. I've been brainstorming some ideas, but I want to hear your thoughts. After all, you know what it's like to live in a small community. You can help me see things I might not think of. Grace opened the folder and skimmed the papers inside. There were notes about building community centers, funding scholarships for kids, and creating programs to teach important skills like farming, crafting, and technology. Her eyes widened as she flipped through the pages. It was ambitious, huge even, but it also felt like something that could really work. This is amazing, Grace said, looking up at Benjamin. But where do we even start? Benjamin chuckled. That's the tricky part. Starting small and meaningful will be key. I was thinking we could focus on your town first. pilot some programs and see what works. What do you think? Grace nodded, her mind already racing with ideas. I think that's a great idea. Maybe we can start with something simple, like a food bank or a community garden. A lot of families in town struggle to put food on the table. Benjamin smiled. I knew I made the right choice by asking you. A community garden could bring people together while addressing an important need. Let's make it happen. Over the next few hours, Grace and Benjamin brainstormed ideas, jotting down notes and sketching out plans. Grace felt a sense of purpose she had never experienced before. She wasn't just a kid from a small town anymore. She was part of something bigger, something that could truly change lives. When the meeting ended, Benjamin handed her a smaller envelope. Consider this a thank you for believing in this project, he said with a wink. Grace opened it cautiously and gasped. Inside was a check, a lot more money than she had ever seen in her life. Mr. Har, I mean, Ben, this is too much. It's not just for you, Benjamin explained. Use some of it for your family, but I want you to use the rest to kickstart the garden or whatever project you think your town needs most. You're in charge. Grace nodded, still overwhelmed by everything happening so fast. I won't let you down, she said firmly. I know you won't, Benjamin replied with a kind smile. This is just the beginning, Grace. Grace returned home that afternoon with her head full of plans and her heart brimming with determination. She couldn't wait to tell her mom and the rest of the town about the new opportunities that lay ahead. But little did she know, this was only the first step of a much larger adventure, one that would take her to places she had only dreamed of and challenge her in ways she couldn't yet imagine. Grace's house buzzed with excitement that evening as she shared everything with her mom. The check Benjamin had given her was placed carefully on the kitchen table as though it were made of glass. Her mom's eyes were filled with both pride and disbelief. Grace, her mom said, placing a hand on her shoulder, you've always wanted to help people, and now you have the chance to do something incredible. Grace nodded, already thinking about the first step she needed to take. The next morning, she decided to visit the town mayor. Mr. Carter was an elderly man with kind eyes who had always encouraged Grace's ideas in the past. As Grace entered his modest office, carrying the folder Benjamin had given her and the check, Mr. Carter greeted her warmly. Grace, to what do I owe this visit? Grace took a deep breath and began explaining everything about Benjamin Harris, the new foundation, and the community garden project. Mr. Carter listened intently, nodding every so often. This is quite ambitious, he said finally, leaning back in his chair. But if anyone can pull it off, it's you. Do you think we can do it, Mr. Carter? Grace asked eagerly. Mr. Carter smiled. With a heart as big as yours and the support of someone like Mr. Harris, I don't see why not. Let's start by finding some land for this garden. Within days, word of Grace's project spread like wildfire through the small town. People from all walks of life offered to help. Some donated seeds and tools, others volunteered their time. Even kids from Grace's school came forward, excited to be part of something meaningful. The town soon identified a patch of unused land near the old library for the garden. It was overgrown with weeds and rocks, but to Grace, it was perfect. She could already picture rows of vegetables and colorful flowers growing there. As the community began clearing the land, Grace worked harder than ever. She spent her days helping to dig, plant, and organize, and her evenings planning the next steps. Benjamin stayed in touch, often calling to check on progress and offering advice. One day, as Grace was pulling weeds with a group of volunteers, a sleek black car pulled up. To her surprise, Benjamin stepped out, dressed casually in jeans and a t-shirt. He waved at Grace, who ran over, beaming. "Ben, what are you doing here?" she asked, excited but puzzled. "I wanted to see the progress myself," he said with a grin, "and maybe lend a hand." Grace laughed. "I hope you're ready to get your hands dirty." Benjamin rolled up his sleeves and joined the group, much to everyone's amazement. Seeing the billionaire digging in the dirt alongside them inspired the community even more. By the end of the day, the land was almost ready for planting. As the days turned into weeks, the garden began to take shape. Rows of green sprouts peeked through the soil, and colorful flowers lined the edges. Grace couldn't believe how far they had come in such a short time. But little did she know, this was only the beginning of her journey. Bigger challenges and even greater opportunities were just around the corner. The community garden had become the pride of the town. People from every corner of the small community came together to care for it, and soon enough, fresh vegetables, fruits, and flowers began to grow in abundance. Grace felt a deep sense of accomplishment every time she visited the garden. This was more than just a patch of land. It was a symbol of hope and unity. One sunny afternoon, as Grace was inspecting the rows of tomatoes with some of the local kids, Benjamin arrived with an unfamiliar man. The stranger was tall, wearing glasses and carrying a briefcase. He gave Grace a polite smile as Benjamin introduced him. "Grace, this is Mr. Walters," Benjamin said. "He's a project manager who's worked on some of the biggest charitable initiatives in the country. I asked him to visit and help us figure out how we can take this project to the next level." Grace's eyes widened. "The next level?" Benjamin nodded. "The garden is incredible, Grace, but this is just the start. Imagine what we could do with more resources, like building a community center where people can learn new skills or a shelter for families in need." Grace's heart raced with excitement, but also a touch of nervousness. The idea of expanding the project sounded amazing, but it also felt overwhelming. "That sounds huge," she admitted. "It is," Mr. Walters said with a kind smile. "But big dreams start small, just like this garden. And with the right planning and support, you'd be amazed at what's possible." Over the next few days, Grace worked closely with Mr. Walters and Benjamin to map out ideas for the expansion. They held a town meeting, inviting everyone to share their thoughts and suggestions. The community's enthusiasm was infectious, and soon they had a list of projects they wanted to tackle. From setting up a library filled with donated books to creating after-school programs for kids. Grace found herself taking on more responsibility than ever. She attended meetings, talked to local businesses about potential partnerships, and even gave speeches to rally support. It was exhausting but exhilarating. She was discovering a side of herself she never knew existed. A leader who could inspire others to dream bigger. One evening, as Grace was going over plans at her kitchen table, her mom sat down beside her. "You've come so far, Grace," she said softly. "I'm so proud of you. But don't forget to take care of yourself, too." Grace smiled and hugged her mom. "I'll be okay. This just feels right, you know? Like I was meant to do this." Her mom nodded, though a hint of worry lingered in her eyes. "Just remember, no matter how big this gets, you're still my little girl." Grace laughed. "Don't worry, Mom. I'll always be your little girl." As the town's projects began to take shape, word of Grace's efforts spread beyond their small community. Journalists and bloggers started writing about the young girl who had teamed up with a billionaire to make a difference. One day, Benjamin called Grace with unexpected news. Grace, he said, his tone excited, a large charity organization just reached out. They've heard about what we're doing and want to help fund our projects. They even want to visit the garden and meet you. Grace couldn't believe her ears. Are you serious? Why would they want to meet me? Because you're the heart of this, Grace, Benjamin replied. You're the one who started it all. And so Grace's journey continued to grow in ways she never imagined. But with new opportunities came new challenges, ones that would test her determination and courage even further. The day arrived when the charity organization came to visit the community garden. Grace felt both nervous and excited as she stood among the rows of blooming flowers and ripe vegetables. The garden had grown beyond her wildest dreams, and the entire town had come together to celebrate its success. Benjamin was by her side, offering encouragement and reminding her that she had earned this moment. Representatives from the charity toured the garden, listening as Grace explained how it had brought the community closer and provided food for those in need. They were impressed not just by the garden itself, but by Grace's leadership and passion. After the tour, one of the representatives stood up and made an announcement that sent cheers echoing across the garden. We are thrilled to support this amazing project, she said, smiling at Grace. Not only will we provide funding to expand your efforts, but we'll also create partnerships with other communities to replicate your incredible work. Grace felt tears welling up in her eyes. The dream she had once thought impossible was now reaching people far beyond her small town. Benjamin leaned over and whispered, "This is only the beginning, Grace." As time went on, the town saw even greater changes. The garden was expanded into a full community center with classrooms, a small library, and a shelter for families in need. People from all over visited to learn how to start similar projects in their own communities. Grace became a symbol of hope, showing the world that even the smallest acts of kindness could lead to extraordinary change. Through it all, Grace never forgot the moment she had found Benjamin lying injured on the mountain trail. That single decision to help a stranger had transformed her life in ways she could never have imagined. And while she had always wanted to make a difference, she now realized that her journey had only just begun. Grace stood at the center of the garden one day, looking out at the people she had come to know and love. She felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for what she had accomplished, but for the lessons she had learned along the way. Kindness, courage, and determination could truly change the world. As the sun set over the town, casting everything in a warm, golden glow, Grace smiled. Her story wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to everyone who had believed in her, everyone who had worked to build something greater than themselves. And so her adventure came to a close, not with an ending, but with a new beginning, one filled with hope and endless possibilities.